In today's episode, I'm going to be doing a review of the Segway Ninebot Max G2 after 250 miles of riding it. I'm going to be covering my top 5 pros and cons of this scooter and whether or not, knowing this information, I would make this purchase again. So stay tuned, we're going to jump right into it. So right off the bat, I just want to say that this review isn't sponsored by anyone. I personally bought this scooter to go out on joyrides, cruise the streets, and ultimately detach from the busyness of everyday life. So now that I've gotten that out of the way, it's time for me to cover my top 5 pros for the Segway Ninebot Max G2. Number 1 on my list is absolutely the suspension on this scooter. The Ninebot Max G2 handles bumps and uneven riding surfaces with a breeze. I've driven this scooter on pavement, asphalt, grass, as well as dirt and gravel roads and haven't run into any issues with traction. I'm able to confidently traverse a variety of riding surfaces and for especially slick conditions can enable the scooter's traction control system. If the suspension is too firm or too loose, simply adjust the rear springs to your liking. If you're accustomed to riding scooters with no suspension at all, I'll tell you right now, riding the Max G2 is a night and day difference in riding comfort. Whether it be riding on gravel, dirt roads, uneven terrain, roads with potholes, the whole 9 yards, this suspension takes it all. And doesn't transfer all of that to your body like you would with a scooter without a suspension. And that brings us to number 2 on my list, and that's riding range. Out of the box, Segway says this scooter will do 43 miles of range on a single charge. As you probably know, that figure was derived from riding in eco mode in perfect conditions with a rider of a specific weight. In real-world tests, I was able to crank out 31 miles or 50 kilometers on a blistering hot summer day here in Arizona in sport mode. The link above will take you straight to that ultra marathon of a ride. And honestly, to my surprise, in that heat, I ran into no overheating issues at all whatsoever. Now, keep in mind, there have been reports from people online who've experienced overheating issues, specifically people above 200 pounds or 90 kilograms. Now, with that being said, Segway has released a firmware update that's supposed to address the controller performance in higher temps. From my experience, it does appear the firmware update has successfully addressed this issue, as I've noticed a more gradual climb in temperature compared to before. Overall, I'm super impressed with the range of this scooter. If that's something you're looking for, just know I was able to crank out 31 miles or 50 kilometers on a blistering hot day in the desert heat here in Arizona and had no issues at all whatsoever. And that brings us to number 3 of my top 5 pros for the Segway Ninebot Max G2, and that's hill climb performance. I was able to take this scooter up 500 feet of elevation gain in over 10 miles of hilly terrain and didn't run into any issues at all whatsoever. Plus, at the end of the ride, I had plenty of battery to spare. If you'd like to take a look at that hill climb test, click the link above for the full video. I also tested this scooter in a multi-level parking garage on an 18 to 19% grade with 34% battery remaining. I was able to make it to the top with no issue at all, and I'd imagine I would have made the climb even quicker with a full battery. So if hill climbing ability is important to you, the Segway Ninebot Max G2 has done a fantastic job for me in tackling low to moderate hills. Number 4 on my list is seamless and intuitive app integration. The Segway app gives you full control of your scooter settings. You can adjust everything from cruise control settings, brake light behavior, charging capacity, and max speed, as well as a host of other settings to dial in your riding experience. The app is also quite stable. There are many products with companion apps in the market today, and honestly, more often than not, the app experiences aren't anything to write home about. I've been pleasantly surprised with the overall performance of the app and quick connection with the Segway Ninebot Max G2. And that brings us to number 5 on my list of the top 5 pros for the Segway Ninebot Max G2, and that is excellent cable management. There are many scooters on the market today that seem to have treated cable management as an afterthought. I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I prefer to have wires neatly tucked away rather than hanging down the front of the scooter. For me, the fewer the visible cables, the better. And in this arena, I think Segway has done a fantastic job at delivering a good-looking product with excellent cable management. So to summarize my top 5 pros for this scooter, we've got refined suspension, excellent riding range, absolutely fantastic hill climbability, intuitive and seamless app integration, as well as excellent cable management. And that takes us to my top 5 cons for the Segway Ninebot Max G2. Number 1 on my list is the temperature of the standing deck on long rides in warm conditions. The standing deck does get uncomfortably warm when riding for extended periods of time in warmer temperatures. During my 31-mile range test in the Arizona heat, the deck got uncomfortably warm, causing me to reposition my feet on multiple occasions. I'm not sure if it would do the same thing in colder climates, but if so, I guess it could double as a foot warmer. So my recommendation to Segway is to add a little more insulation between the deck and the battery and controller, whatever's generating all of that heat. Number 2 on my list is the headlight. The headlight leaves a lot to be desired. It doesn't cast a beam far enough in front of you, nor to the sides, to inspire much in the way of confidence when riding at higher speeds in the dark. I definitely recommend an aftermarket light to supplement the onboard light, especially if you're going to be zipping around at speed in low light conditions. And that brings us to number 3 on the list, and that is slightly slower acceleration after the 1.4.8 firmware update. Segway released a firmware update to address a multitude of post-launch issues, one of them being the performance of the motor and battery controller at higher temperatures, and it looks like in order to achieve this, acceleration was throttled down a bit. If this means fewer people experience overheating, then so be it. I'll just say it was a noticeable change for me after the update. I've since gotten used to it. In fact, it seems to have smoothed out the acceleration curve a bit. And that takes us to number 4 on my list of the top 5 cons for the Segway Ninebot Max G2, and that is the location of the turn signals. Although the turn signals are a fabulous addition to this scooter by Segway, I wish they went with end cap style turn signals. The reason being, I find that my grip is a bit wider and my hands often partially cover the lights, reducing their visibility to those around me. I'd also like to see the option in the future to have timed turn signals. I have, on multiple occasions, forgotten that my signals were still on. Yes, they do offer an audible indication option, but to be honest, the sound is pretty annoying. For me, it most resembles the sound of a semi-truck backing up. And that takes us to number 5 on the list, and that is spare parts availability. So at the time of filming this, the Segway Ninebot Max G2 is only a couple months old. There aren't a lot of spare parts available for this scooter, so that's something to keep in mind. If something does go wrong, if you do end up damaging a wheel or a tire, whatever it might be, you might not be able to get those parts for a while, so that is absolutely a consideration. Now, as time goes on, those parts will become available and this will become a non-issue. In addition to the pros and cons, I'd like to throw out just a few highlights of this scooter over my 250 miles, 400 kilometers of riding. So far, there's no appearance of wear and tear on this scooter after going 250 miles, 400 kilometers. It looks fantastic. The second thing is that there are no squeaks and creaks. It sounds as good as it did on day one. Also to note, the battery is still performing like a champ. I charge it to 80% on most days, but for some of my longer, more aggressive rides, I will charge it to 100%, and the battery performance has been consistent across the whole 250 miles so far. Finally, I love that all the charging components for this scooter are internalized. You don't have to worry about carrying around a big, clunky, hot, overheating brick of a charger to juice this puppy up. It's simply a cable, plug it into the wall, plug it into your scooter, you're good to go. So in conclusion, the Segway Ninebot Max G2 offers a tremendous amount of value for your money and is overall a joy to ride. It's well designed, rides smooth as butter, and has more than enough power to get you around town. In my opinion, the pros absolutely outweigh the cons, and I would recommend this scooter for commuters or casual riders looking to zip around the neighborhood. So, to answer the question, knowing all of this information, would I make the purchase again? My answer is absolutely. As always, thank you so much for tuning into Tom's Gadget Garage. I'll see you next time.